now that we have cropped the image so that we can focus on one particular sketch, and there is an essence of preparation involved, because we are sketching there, we may need to look at the image much more closely, and find gaps that appear in the image. So if I was to zoom in close into this image and pan and zoom, you may find here something like this. This kind of a gap here can cause a problem at a later stage when we start to deal with selection. And because there is a gap here, the fuzzy select tool that we're going to use to highlight areas may leak out through this gap here. So it's up to the user to come along and to fill that gap. Now we're going to use the simple paintbrush tool or airbrush tool, whichever it may be, and we're simply going to fill in the area. We're going to close the gap, close the boundary, so that when the fuzzy select is used, these new pixels here have closed up the gap. So it may take a while, and you may end up finding gaps in your selection as you start to select. So maybe by the time it's finished, you may find that there are problems in your sketch. Now, for example, if I look over here at the wheel at the rear, you'll notice there's a fairly substantial problem there with the wheel sketching. So it may be a case that you need to very quickly, again, as you can see, that's quite primitive. Okay, so if we were to use a straight line selection using the shift key, we could possibly take care of that there. Again, it may not affect the sketch in general, but you can see that the wheelbase has been closed up there. And again, just make sure there you can see all of these gray pixels here form an enclosed boundary. So I was able to heal that area there. Again, this is very important. Again, this is very important. The minimization of these gaps will definitely improve our selection technique at a later stage. So as I fill in any small gaps, again, depending on your own sketching techniques, it may be a case that there are no gaps. You've taken care of it completely in the sketching stage, which will help. Again, I look at this area here and I see a gap, so I will use again the shift key just to fill in that area. So that should suffice. So now we've treated or prepared the original sketch so that the amount of gaps in the sketching have been minimized, and we now need to prepare the layers. So as per normal, the background layer is the original layer. This was initially, again, just to come back and talk about the image in general, look at the pixel size of the image, 963 by 591. It's not a very good image for printing. Okay, it would only be 3 inches by 2 inches approximately when printed at 300 dpi. So this image is not a very good image for printing. Yes, for presentation purposes on a monitor it's perfect, or via projector it's perfect, but not for printing. So the pixel count that we see here will definitely have an impact on the pixel size that we use in painting at a later stage. So the brushes may need to be a lot bigger if the image is to be printed, which normally it will be. So now, because this is a JPEG originally, even though I've saved it now as an XCF, the original layer was the background layer. So we're going to take that layer and we're going to duplicate it. I'm going to rename, I'm going to call this working sketch content. And if I was to expand my layer set there, you would see that's fine. The background layer I'm going to now rename as the backup. And I'm also going to insert a new layer. So I'm going to create a new layer. The new layer is going to be a white layer. Now this is simply a part of the backup process. It isolates or keeps the backup layer away from all the other content. So I'm just going to fill it in like that. So again, it's a separator layer, so it doesn't really need a name, but the fact that it's white is important. So now this separator layer goes in on top of the backup layer, but below the working sketch content. And now I can turn off the backup layer. So the only layer that I see now at the moment is this working sketch content. Now I've prepared the image. Now that the layers have been prepared, I can now move on to the next step, which is the multiply option and then selection and painting.